You want more than just the headlines? Find out what's going on and what it means with me, Dennis Prager, this morning at 11, right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. And Amy, I know this Chicago feudal lord has previously taken an interest in you, and now
Dan, really,
Project 6 is taking an interest in him.
Who hasn't taken an interest in
Yeah,
me?
but what's your relationship with Proco Gropo Joe?
It's Proco Joe.
Gropo.
Proco.
And he's a little Gropo, isn't he?
Well, he's a little handsy. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
No, nothing inappropriate, but I mean, he just did offer to
Sounds inappropriate.
take one Peyton and one Eli under his wing to help him get into a great high school, selective enrollment school. I thought that was nice of him.
And what did you have to do?
Well, I haven't had the official meeting yet. But
Interesting.
Boy, son, your mom must really care about your education. Remember that scene in Forrest Gump? Principal's walking out, like, wiping his brow with his blanket. Your mom must really care about your education.
Yeah, Chicago values.
Well, I could be like Governor Ronner. If I had a lot of money, I could just pay my way, donate my way to let my kids get into my school.
Well, Gropo, you remember Gropo Joe from such instances as
Chick-fil-A.
trying to extort Amy Jacobson for inappropriate touching.
No, you stop it.
And number two, yeah, Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A, that's how most people
Chick-fil-A
got to know him.
doesn't have Chicago values, shouldn't be in Chicago, not Chicago values. See, Proco Joe, like so many feudal lords, I'm talking about the Chicago City Council, in case you're confused. They believe that your property can be used by you as you see fit, only to the extent they see fit. And so we've got another instance of this, a case involving Brian Strauss, who's a Chicago fireman. And he's also the owner of a building, 1572 North Milwaukee, which used to house the concert venue Double Door.
Oh, I love the Double. I've been there many times.
You can't go there at 1572 North Milwaukee anymore because they stopped paying their rent. So they got evicted. But that didn't sit well with Proco Gropo Joe because the Double Door owners are campaign donors. And so he intervened on behalf of them to try and push the building owner around. And for more on this story and the investigative report that was conducted into this abuse of power, I think you could safely say. We're pleased to be joined by Faisal Khan, who is the CEO of Project 6, which is an independent investigative organization. He's also the former legislative inspector general of the Chicago City Council, so he knows of what he speaks when he looks into feudal lords like Alderman Proco Gropo Joe. Faisal Khan, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Morning, Dan. Morning, Amy.
So tell us the story of Brian Strauss, the Chicago fireman and building owner, and his interaction with Alderman Moreno, the result of which is a federal civil rights lawsuit against the city of Chicago and the alderman from Mr. Strauss.
You summed it up pretty good, Dan. Double Door stopped paying their rent. They owed $100,000. And so Brian Strauss, a Chicago fireman for 30 years, just a small business owner, did what every other business owner or landlord would do, and he evicted him. Moreno didn't like it. Moreno, these are people who donated thousands of dollars to him, so he went to fight for them. And despite a court of law saying that Double Door had to leave, Moreno said no. And then when Mr. Strauss fought back, Moreno decided to take things into his own hands and illegally downzoned his property. Downzoning is changing your property from whatever it is to a different usage. So 1572 Milwaukee went from a commercial property where you can rent to whoever you want and have apartments and businesses, and eventually got zoned after 17 months to a much smaller commercial property with much greater limitations as to what you can do. This is your perfect example. When you keep saying feudal lords, this is exactly one man basically abusing another private individual and using the law to ruin his life.
Gosh, and you get into such great detail in your article when you say, Strauss, he said the meeting began civil. Moreno made a statement that would foreshadow the abuse of aldermanic power to come. He told me there will never be another tenant in that building other than Double Door. I mean, did he make any other inflammatory comments besides that?
That's
Maybe
enough.
You can, your listeners can go online to our report and read about it and actually watch a video that was recorded of Alderman Moreno making numerous threats against Mr. Strauss. He basically told him he will never allow anyone else in that building and said that you will never see a dime from this building. You'll have to come back to me on your hands and knees in order for me to change my mind about this. And your family won't see anything from this. I don't know how more egregious than it gets than that.
And there's audio? How could you record audio of that? I mean,
it's video. It's audio and video. He was on the sidewalk screaming at Mr. Strauss when he was evicting Doubledore, then how dare he do not what Alderman Moreno wanted him to do.
And the
you just want him to eat $100,000?
Well, it's more than that. The downzoning that you refer to, Faisal, that not only changes what he can do, it changes the value of the property, doesn't it?
Significantly. And to a point, Dan, that Brian Strauss just said, forget it, I want to sell. I just want to get out at this point. He had 3 different buyers lined up at different times, and all of them backed out of the deal because they knew Moreno was going to keep screwing with Mr. Strauss's property and therefore screwing with their property. Well, this cost Strauss millions at this point, and it's going to end up costing you and me millions because the city's now, as you noted, has to deal with a federal lawsuit, and the city likes to settle things, and that comes out of your or my pocket. That's it. No one else.
And with respect to what Moreno is doing here, I mean, you're also a former prosecutor in New York State, in New York City, and legislative inspector general for the city council. Are we talking about possible criminal conduct with what Proco Joe has done?
I'm saying somebody should be taking a very hard look at what Moreno has done here because there appears to be no rhyme and reason why to change that property, 1572 Milwaukee, and rezone it. Every other building on that block is zoned exactly the way Strauss's building was originally zoned. So to target Strauss at this point, to target only him and his building and downzone it, costing him millions out of what looks like complete vengeance and just payback, somebody in law enforcement should take a hard look at his conduct right now.
I mean, I'm watching this video right now. Are you kidding me? I mean, this seems like a turkey shoot that he'd get in trouble for this behavior.
Amy, it's a perfect example of why Chicago is in the mess that it's in. It's the perfect example of how Brian Strauss is like you and me. He's a guy who dedicated his life to public service. He's a fireman. He's a small business owner. What kind of message does this send to other business owners who want to come to Chicago and help transform this place? When they see that, I guarantee you're going to get second thoughts about what you're going to want to do around here.
And the building in question was something that had been passed on to him by his father.
Yeah, this is a generational building. And honestly, whether you love Doubledore, you hate Doubledore, it's really not the point. It's about what a man can do with his own business and with his own building and his property, as you noted, Dan. And no alderman gets to tell you that.
Yeah.
Mr. Strauss was not breaking any rules. He's not violating the law. He was not doing anything like that, yet he didn't do what Moreno wanted to do for one of his donors, and as a result, this is now what he's got to deal with.
And Moreno was, according to some of the correspondence you reference in your report, Moreno was trying to enlist the fifth floor, Tiny Dancer, Mayor Emanuel, to help Doubledore, wasn't he?
Yeah. According to the emails, not only did Doubledore meet with the mayor, Doubledore used the fifth floor and that office to set up a meeting between city officials and Strauss and try to force Strauss to sell his building to Doubledore at half the cost of what that building is worth. And Strauss was amazed at how can city officials decide to do this. And frankly, we're all amazed. So what is the fifth floor and city officials trying to do and broker a private deal between two private parties?
Has Proco Joe offered any explanation to attempt to justify his conduct?
Nothing logical enough that you and I can talk about.
Well, he's saying no, but in his defense, he's saying that his building's dangerous and he needs to change something up on the second floor. Or was there some overhang issue, or what's going on here?
Sure.
What does that have to do with zoning?
Exactly. Number one, what does that have to do with zoning, Amy? And secondly, that's what the Department of Buildings is for. That's not what an alderman is for. Send out inspectors, and if there's something wrong with the building, Mr. Strauss has to correct it. Simple as that.
So did he
face city punishment?
Did he
That's not what happened here, though.
Did he want Strauss just to eat the $100,000, or did they want to get on some payment plan?
Not only did he want him to eat the $100,000, he wanted to have him rent the building back to Doubledore at a fraction of the rent value, or sell the property directly to Doubledore at half the rent value, at half the value of the building. Doubledore was so cocky, if you've seen our report, that they told him that, like, we have the city backing and you don't, so you might as well make this deal before life gets worse for you.
Yeah, that's the kleptocracy. You use government as a sword or a shield to, inflict punishment on your adversaries or competitors or to protect yourself from said. And this is why Chicago and Illinois are what they are. I mean, this is just an incredible story, and it's a great investigative report. And I wonder if you've gotten, to the extent you can tell us, do you get interest from local, including federally housed local law enforcement about the stories that you're doing?
In some cases, Dan, yeah, absolutely. Look, we have conversations with a lot of different people about this stuff. You ask me all the time, Dan, what's the price of corruption? This is the perfect example of it. Because this is going to end up costing millions of dollars to the city of Chicago and then thus de facto taxpayers.
Well, and
how we evaluate that.
And the other thing is, right, so the message is, you think you couldn't be put in the position of Brian Strauss if there's an interested party that has more political clout than you do, whether you're a business owner anywhere in the city, you're a homeowner anywhere in the city? You don't think that political power can be brought to bear against you? Just ask Brian Strauss.
Exactly. Look, the statistics. People are leaving Chicago and Illinois in the tens of thousands every year. What business owner is going to read this report and say, you know what, I think I want to stay.
Yeah.
I think I want to open a business here because, like you noted, any given day in any given fiefdom, they can turn your world upside down.
Check out this report that Faisal Khan and his team did at Project 6, thesecret6.com. Thesecret6.com is where you find the report on Proco Gropo Joe and his feudalism. Chicago alderman using his power to punish cost a small business owner millions is the title of the report. Faisal Khan, CEO of Project 6, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a